Hello and welcome to another edition of Luminar Coffee Break. I'm your host, Vanelli. Now, joining me today is my co-host, Angela Andrieux. Hello, Angela.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday.
Good. Now, we have a lot to cover today, don't we?
We do. We have a couple of things from your end. I believe you're going to be talking about how to organize assets and best practices for backing up. And we're going to talk about, from my end, a couple of the episodes I did earlier this week, how to get your edits out of Luminar AI. So we're going to do a quick edit on a photo, and I'll show you how to export your image. And we'll get creative with some light leak textures.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, now we do have in the chat real quick, just to address this very quickly. Milo, are you still here? If you are, when you say please send us an update to fix software from crashing, we need more info. Like, are you on a Mac, on a PC? Is it crashing when you're exporting? Let us know. And Angela, at some point, can you type in the comment, my email address?
I don't have access to type into
Oh,
the
that's right.
comments on this
Yep,
particular interface.
yep, no problem.
But
That's right. I
if
can
you
put in.
haven't already, Milo, reached out to support at skylum.com. They should be able to help you with whatever issues you've encountered.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Angela. All right, so let's dive right in. Do you want me
All
to
right.
start first?
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay, you got it. Hit it.
All right. So earlier this week, we talked about how to get your edits out of Luminar AI. Now, for most of you who've been using our software for a long time, this is a pretty beginner level episode that we did. But if you're new to processing, it might be a little bit confusing as to what happens to your images when you bring them into Luminar, and then how do you get those images embedded into that image so you can share them with your edits to either print lab, social media, wherever it is you're sending your photos. So Luminar AI has a catalog. And when you bring your images into Luminar AI, they show up here under these folders, and it points to your hard drive. It doesn't actually hold your images, it just points to your images. So any edited photo, let's say this one right here, I did a beautiful job editing this mother and daughter. Now, if I go to my hard drive and I go to Show in Finder, if you're on Windows, it'd be Show in Explorer, we can pull up that raw image and we'll see here as soon as it loads, it's completely unedited. You can tell it hasn't been cropped, the color hasn't been corrected. The changes are not actually on that photo, which means that Luminar AI is non-destructive. It doesn't actually touch your raw files. What you're seeing here in Luminar is a preview of your image of what it will look like when you export your photos with those changes. So to get your edits out of Luminar, what you need to do is export your image, which you can do either by going to the File menu and going down to Export, or you can go to the Export tab here and then choose Save to Disk and click Save to Disk. And this will bring up your file browser. You can decide where you want to save it, if you want to save it to your hard drive, and then you can choose what parameters you want to use to save this image. If I was going to be sending this to a print lab, I would probably do low sharpening. I would do my original size, and this is going to be the size that you cropped it to, the ratio you cropped it to in Luminar, not the original crop. So I'm going to keep that as big as possible. I'm going to go with sRGB, a JPEG, and 100% quality to send it to a print lab. And that'll give me the best possible quality print. If I'm wanting to send this to, let's say, Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media you like best, what I would do in that case is, again, I'd probably leave it at the low sharpening. I would do original, or instead of doing original, I would resize this to the long edge. And my typical go-to is 1200 pixels for the long edge. But what I recommend is looking up in the help section of whatever social media you like to use and seeing what they recommend. Each one is a little bit different, but I highly recommend that you never send your full resolution files to social media. And there's two reasons for that. One, if you upload the full file, somebody could steal your full resolution image and use it for whatever they want without your permission. The second reason is a lot of these platforms will automatically resize and downsize your images, and it can make them look terrible. So you just put in all of this time editing and making your picture look beautiful. You upload it too large to a social media platform, they compress it and downsize it, and it looks terrible. So make sure you look up what that social media channel recommends for their sizes and export to those sizes. And typically it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1200 pixels and sRGB color space. From there, I would click Save, and then you're good to go to share it wherever you want to go. Your original raw image will remain untouched, and you can edit that again. If I go ahead and click cancel here and go back over here to edit, I can always go into my history, see everything I did, and I can even revert that back to the original if I wanted to. All right. Any other recommendations you'd add to that, Vanelli?
No, that's awesome. Let me pull your. Sorry, here we are. There we are. So there you are. Yeah. So the only difference is Windows and Mac is slightly different on the export, right? So
Okay.
in fact, let me pull up my export to disk. Yeah. So if you notice, on the Windows platform, we're able to set the resolution. And here's 240 pixels per inch. Just leave that alone. Pixels per inch is PPI, and that just leave it where it's at. I know you don't have that on Mac. Am I correct on that?
We don't unless you're exporting as a TIFF. And typically when I have that option available for me, most print labs are going to recommend 240. Some will recommend 300. For web, I typically do 72. So those are just my personal settings.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's like when you're sending off to a print lab, they'll send you the print specs. And what's typical about the print labs, and keep in mind, and please don't say, I'm not a professional photographer. You're taking photos, you have beautiful images. If you want it printed on the best possible paper and stuff, use companies like MPIC Pro or MPIC or any of the other places, and they'll actually tell them, hey, what are your printing specs? And you'll find them, and you just dial them in right here. Some want, like you said, sRGB. Some labs may want Adobe RGB. You find out what they want, and then you give it to them. And on social media, you prefer sRGB, I take it.
Yeah, that's typically what I found shows up the best and looks the best. If you use a different color space when uploading to the web, typically, say Facebook is going to convert that to, I think, sRGB. And when that conversion, the colors might not look like you wanted them to. So at least when you convert it yourself, you have the option to see what it looks like before you upload it versus having somebody else take control of it.
Yeah, and just for everyone to know, sRGB is like the worst color space. It's the lowest. Well, it's a Microsoft. It was originally designed by Microsoft, and it's a catch-all. It's like, hey, look, you don't know what color space to use sRGB, be safe, you're done. Adobe RGB and ProPhoto are the better ones, but like you just said, Angela, you put those color spaces onto social media. Social media is like, wait a second, too many color spaces. Let's condense them down, and it may not be what you're looking for. So, like you said, if you're using it for social media, fire away with sRGB. All right.
Yeah. And just check with the different social media companies that you use. Do a quick web search to see what the best upload specifications are for the ones that you like. And that each one of those has a help page that tells you exactly what specs to use. Same goes for all of the print labs out there that I've worked with. If you go through their help sections, they'll tell you exactly what specifications they want to get the best print quality from them.
Awesome. All right. Let me jump right in now. So what I have here, and I'll cancel what I had. All right. So what I'm going to talk about is organizing your assets. And I mentioned this before. Angela gets all the really cool, exciting tips and tricks to show you guys. And then I sometimes get bogged down with the technical side that's not as exciting, but I'm going to make it exciting today because I decided to do something different, Angela. I'm going to show you first why it's important to have your assets all organized in one location, and then I'll show you how to do it. All right. So here's a really cool image. Typically, I don't convert a day image like this into like a night or a sunset image, but for this, it actually works. So I clicked on a template, and I just wanted to pick one, just to get the ball rolling. So now I got the ball rolling, edit, and I want to change out the sky. So I'm going to come over to the sky, and here I can pick from any one of the number of sky that's already included inside the software, or I can click this little plus icon, and load my own sky. Well, now I'm going to load my own sky, but here's the trick. Here's the thing. Where's my own skies? What I have to do is look for it real quick. So if I have to look for it, I want it in a place that makes sense and it's easy to get to. So under my images, where all my images are located, I have a folder called underscore assets. Why underscore? It shoots it to the top. Now, inside underscore assets, I can store any looks, LUTs, my signature, skies, any of the templates that I purchased or downloaded for free, and of course textures. Now, if you're a Lightroom user, here's where you would also put your Lightroom presets or any of your Lightroom export, what do they call it? You have presets and then export programs, like SmugMug and stuff that you load into Lightroom. I would put them all in this location to where if, let's say, Lightroom crashed, you have to reinstall it, and reinstall all the plugins and reinstall all of the, quote, assets to it. You'll know exactly where to look to find it. With Luminar here, again, let's say you decide to replace Luminar with a new version, and for whatever reason, something goes wrong. If you have in here where these assets are, you can always reinstall them real easy. So again, this is the reason why you want to put underscore assets or all your assets into one location. I like to put it just under where all my images are, so it'll be easy to find it. So let's go to skies, and because Angela is in California, that's the only reason why I'm doing that. let's grab a different sky, and notice it added it to my scene. And in a moment, we'll look at that. All right, now that I have this here, let's add some reflection into the water. Look at that. Watch this. Here, give it a second. Bring it in. I want to relight the scene. And let's come down here to sky adjustment. Let's bring it down a little bit. Here. It's still a little bright. I mean, the whole image, we're going to darken the entire image to kind of get that look and feel. But I want to get the sky down a little bit. And atmosphere.
What about a little bit of horizon blending?
Yep. Yeah, I was just about to jump right into that. So here we are. No, I'm glad you mentioned that too. Okay, Angela, why the horizon blending?
Well, it's just going to create a natural transition between the horizon and the sky that you added, and also bringing it down so it blends with where the water is meeting the horizon, and just make it look more natural.
Exactly. So yeah, so look at the difference from here, and now it's blending in a lot better. Good call. All right. So now that I have this set here, what I may do is, let's come over here to the light tool. And bring back the black just a little bit. That looks good. I want to jump over to vignette. And she's my focus point right here for now. There we go. Now we're getting here a little too much. All right. Bring it back a little bit. And one last thing I want to do, Angela, is local masking, basic. Now here, I do want to dial back the exposure, but I'm not focusing on anything here. The only thing I'm focusing on right now is the lower half of the scene. So what I want to do is make this a local adjustment versus a global. So I want to grab the gradient mask and just drag up. And now, look at that. I'm able to take the bottom half of the image, make it a little bit darker, and then bring it up. And we're set. Now, I could spend more time maybe adding a little more light to her, bring out the shadows. In fact, I might as well jump in real quick. Super contrast. And bring out the shadow just a little bit. There we go. And we said, so we went from this to this. And the reason we were able to get to that asset so quick was because we had it organized. So Angela, I have it here. I have one last step to show. What if I wanted to add a texture to this now? Well, I'm going to load a texture. And sure enough, under my assets, here's my textures. Now, under the textures, I'm going to look around. Didn't Rich Harrington come up with a bunch of really, really cool framed ones? Right, Angela? We have those on
there were
Insiders.
They were in like the torn edges, or what is it called?
And he and his daughter spent the weekend just tearing up paper and taking pictures of it, which was pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right, but what I'm getting at here is, and again, I did this because I wanted to show you we don't have to be geeky to have fun, but look how quick it was to find those assets that I needed by putting them, like I said, in a folder called _assets. Right there, I'm able to find anything I need that'll help me with those images. All right, there we go, Angela.
Awesome. Very excellent. So we have a question from Gord, and he's wondering if there's ever any issues in naming a folder starting with the underscore specifically on Windows.
No, and I'm on Windows right now. You know what I should have asked? Is there an issue with it on Mac, Angela?
I have not had any issues with it. If you
Okay.
actually you share my screen, I can show you here under my folders. I actually have a folder here that starts with the underscore, and I've never had an issue with it.
Great.
So.
Yep. And same here. So and under Windows, I have no issues with the underscore. And that's about it. Jose says, been using Luminar AI for a few months now. Absolutely love it. Keep up the great work. Hey, thank you so much. All right, Angela.
Awesome.
So what do you have next for us?
All right, so in yesterday's episode, we played with light leak textures. So if you go back to yesterday's episode, in the description for that episode, I linked to a custom template that I made, as well as a place that you can go to download these light leak textures that I use. And the critical thing, like Vanelli was saying, is having a dedicated space on your hard drive or external drive where you keep all of those assets. And that's where I have all of my light leaks. Where I store those as well. So here's this beautiful image of a woman walking through a park, cherry blossom leaves falling. And the image itself, beautiful by itself, there's already a light flare across the bottom, and I wanted to intensify that atmosphere. So I added a light leak texture, made a few other changes, and I created this cherry blossom template that I shared with you. You can download it under yesterday's episode's description. So let me right click on this image, go to adjustments, and I'm going to revert it to the original, and I'll show you exactly what I did. So let that load. There we go. So I started with this image with one of my favorite templates, and that one is under scenery, and it's called Fast Fix. Now, a handful of people asked me yesterday, how do you mark a template as a favorite? You just click this little heart here on the side, and that marks it as a favorite, and you can then easily find it later under favorites. So right there at the top, you can see Fast Fix is one that I use quite a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. You can see it pop the color a little bit. It gave us a little bit of contrast, and I think it gets us moving in the right direction. From there, I'll go to edit, and I'm going to scroll up to Composition AI, and I'm going to crop this in a little bit tighter. And let's see what the Composition AI gives us. I don't think that's really the greatest crop, so I'm going to move that down, make sure she stays in the frame, and then pull that in a bit tighter, maybe right about there. And I'm giving her a little bit of room on the right. Her face is looking out of the frame to the right, and she's leaning a little bit. So I want to make sure she has room to look out of the frame, so that way I placed her a little bit closer to the left of the frame. And I think that works well for this image. I'll hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and commit that crop. And then I did a couple of really quick edits with the portrait tools. So I'll scroll down to first our face AI, and I want to fill in a little bit of the shadows on our face. We just bring up that face light ever so slightly, and we can zoom in and make her eyes come alive a little bit more, make them pop. I'll add a little bit of iris flare, and I'll scroll down to the eye enhancer. We'll bring that up. And she has really beautiful skin, but we want to make her look her best. So I'm also going to add just a little bit of the skin AI just to smooth out any little imperfections. And I think that looks beautiful. Now, this image, it could be done right now, but I want to take it a step further, and I want to play with this light flare that we have naturally already occurring in the scene and add to it. So I'm going to go to local masking and to add a texture. So from here, I'm going to go to load texture. Give that a moment. And now you can see that I'm in my light leaks folder. If I go up, I have my folder. Instead of calling it assets, I have it called Sky Texture LUT. And that's where I have my borders and textures, LUT files, objects, and other skies that I don't have installed in Luminar AI. So I'm going to go into my border and textures folder, find that light leaks folder. And I think the one I chose here was number 13. Let me change the view here so we can take a look, view this as columns, and then we can get a preview of what that looks like. So let's go ahead and run with that one. I'll hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and insert that on my image. And you can see that pops up. It's already nicely placed. I'm going to pull that opacity all the way up, and you can see that it has some transparency. Some of our image comes through, and we might not want it to be quite that strong, so we can always back that off a little bit until we like the effect. Now, I like what it's doing up here. This rainbow up here kind of matches the flare that was naturally occurring across the bottom of the scene. But I feel like the effect is a little bit too strong on her face and her torso. So we can bring that back a little bit using our erase tool. I'll bring the opacity down, about 30%, and then make my brush a little bigger using the bracket keys on my keyboard. And then just do a quick swipe here over her face and her torso. That's better. Maybe one more quick swipe there over her face. And that's starting to look a little bit more natural. And every time I'm doing it at 30%, it's just layering up that effect a little bit more and revealing a little bit more each time of that base layer. So I think that looks really beautiful. And let's take a look here at the before and the after. What do you think, Vanelli?
Oh, great job at that. I love how you did that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's a fun one. And if you guys are interested in experimenting with the light leak textures, like I said, make sure you go back to yesterday's episode, download those light leaks. But if you go under the templates and take a look at some of the ones that are already built in, Vanelli, if you could share my screen real quick.
Yep,
all right. If you scroll down to the portrait section, we have this one here called experimental. And this has a bunch of light leak textures already built into these templates. So you can play with those as well. I encourage you to do it. That's kind of what got me interested in playing with these to begin with. It wasn't something that I thought I would use very much, but it does create such a nice kind of ethereal atmosphere in an image.
Awesome. Hey, could you also show them where they can get more templates on the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go over here to our templates and we go to purchased, you can click on add. And I believe that's just going to let me add them from my hard drive. Yep. Instead, let's go to our help menu and to the Luminar Marketplace. There we go. And here is our Luminar Marketplace where you can download templates, skies, LUTs, and so much more. There's a ton of stuff here. Some of them are free. Some of them are premium, meaning they do have a price. We also have our Luminar X membership, which you can see some of these are included. That means they'll be one of your monthly deliveries. It's not necessarily that you'll get them right away, but Luminar X has monthly deliveries that sends you skies and templates and educational resources, lots of good stuff there. So if you like adding these types of resources, these assets to your collection, Luminar X is a great way to do it.
Awesome. Well, hey, that was great. All right, now I'm going to do something a little bit different. Again, it's geeky. We're talking about backing up your computer. Now, Angela, did you know that March 31st, the day before April Fool's Day, is World Backup Day? Now,
I did not know that.
Yeah, now, well, it's actually now the whole month. So the whole month of March is World Backup Month, but they moved it to March 31st. And the reason behind it was you're a fool if on the first, if you don't back up your computers and something goes wrong, you're the fool on April Fool's Day.
Makes sense.
And not to mention the fact, how many April Fool viruses used to come out? That was
my
big.
gosh.
And on the Windows platform, people at the beginning, the April Fool's virus would come out and mess up your system. So World Backup Day, March 31st, if you missed it, the second best time to back up all your stuff is today, all right? And let me share my screen to show you this. So I want to make sure I do this without being too geeky. So here I am. I did download this right here. Is on a Photo Focus website. And if you look right here is the description, photofocus.com. In fact, if you just go to photofocus.com or type in 321 backup, or World Backup Day, this will appear. Inside this is an ebook that I wrote called 321 Backup. All right? And by the way, the link to all of this is in the episode that we had last week. So if you want to find the links to this, you can. So here's the backup, the building a bulletproof backup for photographers. Well, let me pull it up here. So this is going to be real quick. The concept is 3, 2, 1. 3 copies of your information. So 3 copies of, let's say, your photos. 3 copies of your hard drive stored on 2 different medias. And the third one is stored up in the cloud. So the translation for that is, imagine, now I'm using Drobos here. Imagine having a large hard drive. In fact, Kevin LaRue was on the other day, and he said he has an 8 gig hard drive that's almost full. Here's your 8 gig hard drive. So to get a hard drive that's going to be able to take all of his images and give him more room would be a 12 gig. So let's say he buys 2 12 gig hard drives. He stores all of his 8 gig one. He transfers it to this one hard drive. Now the second hard drive is completely blank. You could use software like for Windows, it's ThinkBack Pro. You use Carbon Copy, Carbon Copy Cloner, whatever it is. You set it and forget it. Here we go. You set it and forget it. You tell it, I want to mirror, keyword, mirror all of my information on drive A. I want it onto drive B. So in theory, if something, God forbid, happens, this hard drive crash, let's put it this way, it's not when the hard drive crashes, it's not if it's going to happen, it's when is it going to happen. So it's not an if, it's a when. Hard drives are like the tires on your car. They need maintenance. At some point, you have to replace them. So imagine having a 12 gig hard drive and it crashes on you. If you have this 321 backup, well, if this one crashed, go out to the store, buy a new one, but you can still use this one in the meantime with the identical information on it. It's as if nothing ever happened. You buy a second hard drive, bring it back, do the complete mirroring again, and you're good to go. Now, if, God forbid, somebody comes in and steals everything, all your computers, and they steal both of those hard drives because they're right next to each other, then the third copy of it is right here in the cloud. Let me pull this up. And you can use CrashPlan, Backblaze. I mean, Angela, what are you using?
I use Backblaze.
Okay, so you can use Backblaze or CrashPlan, and what happens is that gets stored up into the cloud. You could download all, which should take a long time, or you could have them send you a disk. You could download your entire hard drive again, so you never lose another image again. Now, with all that said, We got the geekiness out of the way, right? Well, how does this pertain to Luminar? All right, and for you Lightroom users, you could use this for Lightroom also. Inside Luminar, this is so cool. If you look over here where it says File, Catalog, and Angela touched base about catalogs, and she mentioned how all of these images are in your catalog. You make edits, changes, whatever. It stays in the catalog. Nobody sees it until you export it. Well, if that catalog crashes, or if you lose it, you delete it, the hard drive goes bad, all the incredible edits you did will be gone. So that's why it's important to make sure that that catalog is safe. Now, I'm going to show you catalog, show in Explorer or show in Finder. The engineers knew that this catalog is one of the most important files on your computer. They created a killer backup system automatically for you. And then what the backup system does is, if for whatever reason you can't open up Luminar, it keeps crashing, it's because something corrupted part of your catalog. So on a Mac, this is so easy. You press the Option key as you start Luminar, and it pops up, and it'll say, all right, which backup do you want to start with? And you can continue sifting through the backups until Luminar starts all over again. So that's why we asked the very first person who made a comment saying it crashes. You may have something corrupt inside your catalog. So doing what we just said will help you relieve those crashes. Now for Windows users, until this, it is a system thing. So it's not Luminar AI for Mac, Luminar AI for Windows. This is part of the Windows platform. The way we're doing it for Mac is part of the Mac platform. So for Windows, we don't have it as easy. So what we need to do is come right here to the backups. If I right click on one of these backups and I copy it. So now I copied this backup. Remember, I can't open up Luminar. Let's say Luminar keeps crashing on me. I copy this backup, and what I'm going to do is add this extension, Luminar AI, to it. But I'm going to put it into a different part of the hard drive. So me personally, I store all of my Luminar catalogs. And that, trust me, is for an entire segment. Should you have one catalog or should you have project-based catalogs? That's a whole philosophy we can deal with at another time. Here, I'm using project-based catalogs. So I want them all safe in one location. So what I'm going to do, when I do my backup of my hard drives, and when I set it in the software, let's say I'm using SyncBack Pro, I tell SyncBack Pro at 2 o'clock in the morning, copy everything in my pictures, my photography folder over to this hard drive. Great. By the way, while you're doing that, save my Luminar catalog, the entire folder, onto those hard drives too. So now this way, if something happens, and let's say my C drive crashes, I can restore off of one of my external drives. So here we are right here. What I would do, let's see if I already did it. Nope, good. What I would do is I would right click, create a new folder. Let's just call this Erase Me, because I know I'm going to have to erase it. And it was a backup. Double click. And now I paste Control or Command P for paste, or V rather, V. Now I paste it, but I have to change that extension to Luminar AI. Once I do, notice, now it's a Luminar AI catalog. So at this point, when I go to start Luminar, I can select that catalog, and now I have everything backed up. It's there. If Luminar wouldn't start, that's going to help me get it started again, and I'm back into editing incredible images. All right, Angela. Oh, there we
Awesome.
go. Please, that wasn't too geeky now, was it?
I don't think so. I mean, and it's such important information that the whole concept, if your hard drive is going to crash, it's when. Having had it happen to me, having seen it happen to so many of my coaching clients, I can't stress enough how important it is to not only have your local backup, but also have that cloud one, because sometimes that local one might get corrupted as well. And then you have that one in the cloud, or maybe something catastrophic happens at your house, like a break-in or a fire. You just never know. So having that cloud option, like I said, I use Backblaze, highly, highly recommended. So
yeah, but I keep in mind like this. Yeah, if photography is a hobby for you, or if you're like, look, I only have 5,000 photos, but out of those 5,000 photos, I'm sure you love those images. So it could be 5,000, it could be 100,000. It doesn't matter. They're your favorite photos. Or like my niece, and I was mentioning this before, she has my great nephew's images all on her iPhone. And she says that her iCloud is too, full, so she can't add anything to it. So if somebody steals that phone, or if it breaks, all of those childhood memories are gone.
Yeah.
If you do the 3-2-1 backup concept, it doesn't have to be expensive. You could have, a 1 terabyte external drives are how much now? Like $20-$30?
Oh yeah, the 1 terabytes are super cheap.
Yeah, so you can have, that's one of them. Then use Google or Amazon, or not Amazon, Dropbox. Use that as your third source of uploading. So let it grow with you. Don't go out tomorrow and buy 2 sets of Drobos and then do a full subscription of Crash Plan when you only have 1,000 images. Let it grow with you. All right?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't personally gotten to the point where I need Drobos, but I'm getting close.
Yeah, and so for people to know, with Drobo, if you saw what I had there, let me pull that back up. What happens here, you see these lights? Each one of those are individual hard drives, and inside that case could be 5 hard drives working as just one. So if one hard drive in that case were to crash, with the Drobo, it's okay. You just pull the hard drive out while it's running. Everything is still normal. You slip a new hard drive in, and it's as if nothing happened. It's called hot swappable, and that's a RAID unit. All right. And the neat thing about that is you don't have to stop and rebuild. But my suggestion is if you don't have more than 12 terabytes of hard drives nowadays, 8 terabyte. If you don't have more than 6 to 8 terabytes, you don't need a RAID yet. Once you start hitting 6 to 8 terabytes, that means you have to buy 12 terabyte external drives to keep up with what you're doing. So until you get to that level, something like that, put the money into a lens or into another piece of photography equipment until you reach that point. All right?
Good advice. Good advice.
All right, Angela.
We have a question from Julie in the chat. She says, if I move a photo on my hard drive, Luminar can't find the original. What can I do? So first of all, the best practice is to move images on your hard drive with Luminar open. That way Luminar can track where it goes. If you happen to have moved it without paying attention to that and having Luminar closed, when you see that little exclamation point on your image in Luminar, right-click on the image or on the folder that's missing and choose locate. Then you can navigate on your hard drive to the new location and tell Luminar where it now resides, and that'll reestablish the connection.
Awesome. All right. And Tim mentioned, thank you for loving Luminar AI. When you launched it, all of a sudden the panels and templates or the edit screens are no longer coming up. Are you on a Mac or a PC? And I've seen it happen on a PC. Angela, have you ever seen it happen on a Mac?
No, I'm not sure about that. I was trying to read his actual quote there, and I wasn't. I don't think I've ever had that happen. So it might be a Windows thing.
Okay, so let me know in the comments if it is. Reach out to support, obviously, at support@skylum.com, but reboot your computer. If it's Windows, Windows just had, and I still love Windows, Angela, so don't say anything. Yep, it is Windows 10. Windows just had an update, and it's messing with our graphics. So your graphics card could be affected by the Windows 10 update. Shut it down, reboot, check to see if Windows has an accumulative update. Because Tim, that's what happened to me. I had an accumulative update. I updated thinking I was done, but no, there was more. And so it was like, it updated, rebooted, came back. Okay, I'm working. This says, hey, did you want to reboot again for the update? I just did. Oh, because it's cumulative, it's not like it installs everything at once. It does it incrementally. So, Tim, check that out. If you're having issues still, get all the tech support.
Yeah.
All right, Angela.
All right. Well, this has been a great show. So much good information, and I hope it was helpful to people. If you enjoyed this, make sure you give us a thumbs up there on YouTube. It lets our producers know that you like to have us here. And if you have ideas for future episodes, make sure you share those in the comments and in the chat. We do pay attention to those, and we have a running list of ideas for future episodes. And we're here to answer your questions. So make sure you post those. Let us know what you want to learn. And with that, I'm going to wish you a great weekend, and I hope you get out and take some photos.
Awesome, guys. Hey, and if you have time, check out the Insiders program at insiders.skylum.com, where there's a wealth of information on that. And since you're an AI, a Luminar AI member, that's free for you. So just go to insiders.skylum.com. And we actually have a Zoom every day from 1 o'clock. We have 2 shows, 1 and 5 Eastern time. And that one is a Zoom show, which means it's live, interactive, where we can see you, you can see us, and you just share information and listen to the show that way, and you jump right in and ask questions in real time. So check that out. Plus, there's a lot of free textures and free templates over on Insiders. All right?
And a ton of articles. A ton of resources over there. Plus, you have access to Vanelli and I there, and a bunch of people on our executive team. So it's a great place if you have questions to get them answered.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next coffee break.